I'm John Ostick from Rolling Stones Economics. Notice the green drumsticks because today Turner Emery, a junior at Malvern Prep, is going to give you the rubric for this year's 2016 AP Macroeconomics question on monetary policy so the Fed can start it up. Start it up, Turner.
The following is a balance sheet of First Superior Bank. Assume that the required reserve ratio is 10%. A. What is the dollar value of new loans that First Superior Bank can make? Explain.
Alright, so first I will just indicate that the information in green is the balance sheet that is given in the question. Now to calculate the value, or the dollar value of new loans that First Superior can make, you need to first find the excess reserves. Now the excess reserves is the difference between the required reserves and the current reserve of $200. Now to calculate the required reserve, you take the required reserve ratio, which is 10%, and you need to use that on the $2,000 of demand deposits. So 10% or 0.1 times $2,000 is $200. So the required reserves at this time are $200. So you take the current reserves, 200, minus required of 200, that is equal to 0. So First Superior Bank cannot make any new loans at this time because they're entirely lent out.
Mr. Smith deposits $100 of cash in the demand deposit account at First Superior Bank. Calculate the maximum amount of new loans that First Superior Bank can now make.
Well, once again, you need to use the required reserve ratio of 10%, but this time you're using it on the $100 that have been deposited by Mr. Smith. So 10% of $100 is 10. And you subtract that 10 from the $100 being deposited, and you find that the value is $90. And that is the value of loans that First Superior can now make based on this $100 deposit. Another way that you can actually look at it is if you take the total increase of demand deposits of $100, and it's now at $2,100, and the reserves are now up to $300, you recalculate the total required reserve rate, or required reserves, which would be 10% of 2,100 or 210, and then the $300 minus 210 is 90. So that's another way you can calculate it.
As a result of Mr. Smith's 100 cash deposit, calculate the maximum change over time in each of the following in the banking system: loans and demand deposits.
Now, for this question, you need to understand the concept of the money multiplier. And the equation for that is right here, where the money multiplier is equal to 1 over the required reserve ratio, in this case 10%. So 1 over 10%, or 0.1, is 10. So now you use the money multiplier in the following way. For calculating the total change in loans, money multiplier times the change in the initial change in loans that can be made from the $100, which is 90. So the money multiplier 10 times 90 equals $900. So the change in loans over time would be 900. Same concept applies for new demand deposits that can be made. One money multiplier of 10 times the $100 demand deposit is equal to $1,000. So the total value of new demand deposits that can be made is $1,000.
As a result of Mr. Smith's $100 cash deposit, calculate the maximum change over time in the money supply.
Now, once again for this question, you need to use the money multiplier of 10 and multiply that by the $100 that have been deposited. Now the value of this money due to the money multiplier is going to increase to $1,000. And now the difference between the two, 1,000 and 100, is $900. So the maximum change in the money supply would be $900.
Provide one reason why the actual change in money supply can be smaller than the maximum change you had identified in Part D.
Now there are a few different reasons why the maximum amount or a maximum increase in money supply could be an overestimate. First, banks are not always going to lend out every bit of excess reserves that they have. They may keep extra money on hand beyond the required reserves. And also, consumers who are being given the loans are not guaranteed to reinvest all of the money that they get. So therefore, the total increase in money supply will actually be low.
Well, that completes the 5 parts of that question macro number 2 on 2016. Turner Emery, we give you a round of applause for a terrific job at explaining, and you really knew how to start it up.